And we begin tonight with an in-depth KREM 2 investigation into a horrific case of child abuse in Airway Heights. Back in December, a couple was arrested in South Dakota when police say they showed up at a funeral home with a coffin trying to have the body of their adoptive daughter buried.
It ultimately led to an investigation that spanned both states and revealed shocking details about alleged abuse that may have gone on for years. Now, over the last several weeks, I've learned a lot about this little girl. I learned that she was the oldest of 4 siblings. She had people in her life who loved her very much, including her biological mom, who actually gave up those parental rights, believing it was the best thing for her daughter. Now, I've talked with her about a dozen times over the last few weeks, and she says she's not ready to go on camera just yet, but she never forgot about her little girl. She says she is heartbroken at what has happened. So tonight, I'm investigating what happened and why a system that is supposed to protect kids didn't work this time.
We knew something was up. She was seen one time, I think, moving in. We never saw her, ever, and we were always so worried.
Megan Rice has lived in Airway Heights for years. She lived one building over from where 8-year-old Meela Miller lived, but was rarely ever seen.
Could be used against you as evidence.
Mandy Miller and her boyfriend, Alexander Kramoyarov, are now both sitting in the Spokane-County jail facing murder charges. Miller is the sister of the girl's biological mom and has been her legal guardian for almost 7 years. Police say the two drove from Airway Heights to Mitchell, South Dakota in mid-December with a U-Haul trailer.
They acted really weird. They went and closed the U-Haul door, walked back inside, and they were seen putting a whole bunch of black bags in the U-Haul.
Court documents say they showed up at a funeral home with a coffin, and inside were the remains of a child. Authorities say it was immediately clear she had died under suspicious circumstances. They said Meela looked small and malnourished for her age, and they noted powdered laundry detergent surrounding the coffin and bedding to mask the odor. They also said when Mandy and Alexander were told they could not bury the girl without an autopsy and proper documentation, they both got very nervous. During that police interview, adoptive mom Mandy told authorities that Meela had died back on September 10th after choking on a strawberry milkshake. She told police they didn't call 911 because they said it would take too long for the ambulance to arrive. But when police interviewed Alexander, records show he never mentioned anything about the little girl choking, only saying that she was sick. Investigators also noted that he kept changing his story about Meela's death. Court documents also show Alexander admitted to slapping the child twice the day she died and also tied her up in a bathrobe like a straitjacket for 4 to 6 hours a day. He also told authorities when the little girl would misbehave, Mandy would hit the child's toes with a hammer.
There's probably not a worse death that could have been inflicted on a child.
Craig Mason is a family law attorney in Spokane. He says this is one of the worst cases of child abuse he's ever heard.
Why would men have short hair like this?
A lot of people said that they couldn't imagine how a little girl could slip through so many cracks.
I actually thought that too until I read the affidavit of probable cause, and then I could see how she slipped through every crack.
Really?
Yes, because she was essentially isolated, and these particular behaviors perfectly fit what the system doesn't respond well to.
We know on multiple occasions, neighbors and school counselors tried to get help. This body cam footage, obtained exclusively by KREM 2, shows Cheney police and a school counselor trying to knock on the family's door to check on Meela. She hadn't been to school in months. This was in March of last year, before the family moved to Airway Heights.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you know if your neighbors are home? Have you seen this little girl? She's supposed to live here.
No.
All right, thank you for your help.
But because no one answered the door that day, police and the advocate simply left.
Officers were at the door multiple times and they just didn't answer the door. That's where it ends. Is that because they just don't have enough then to force them to come to the door?
They don't have enough of an excuse to break down the door.
We did reach out to Child Protective Services, but we're told they did not have an open case with the family within the last year, so they were not actively monitoring Meela. But we found police records of at least a dozen calls from concerned neighbors and school employees to Cheney Police, Airway Heights, and CPS. And according to this police report, CPS told officers they would not be responding, but requested that officers do a welfare check on the child in August of 2022. She hadn't been seen in months. When police responded, documents state the officer was allowed into the family's apartment, where he saw the child breathing and sleeping under a pile of blankets. At the time, Mandy reportedly told police she was homeschooling Meela, and because she worked at night, she said the two typically slept during the day.
He's given a plausible explanation why the child is asleep during the day. He sees her breathing normally. She's probably under a blanket or two, so he doesn't see she's malnourished. It looks normal.
It's just as easy as that?
Well, it's brutally true, yes.
While Meela's death was never reported to police, Miller and Kromoyorov claimed the child died on September 10th.
Do you think the system failed here?
You know, I think that about all we could do is ramp up the expectation of how thoroughly we'll check a child.
KREM 2 also reached out to Airway Heights Police, but were told they could not comment since it is still an active investigation. But the department did send us this statement saying, in part, with our limited resources and significant help from the Spokane-County Sheriff's Office, we are working diligently to hold these people we believe are responsible accountable based on our ongoing investigation.
You said that this case in particular revealed a lot of cracks in multiple different systems. Do you think it reveals that this could happen again with other children slipping through the cracks in some of these same ways?
Yes. If they have no other relative who's keeping an eye on them, but this is just one where Meela slid by. I was expecting to find a bad guy, and I think it was just that cold evil of the parents, and the few little gaps in the system was just a catastrophe for Meela.
Now, we also asked CPS why they weren't actively monitoring Meela if so many people had been calling with concerns about her. We were told they did receive 4 separate calls about Meela between February and August of 2022, but they said none of those calls met the legal definition of child abuse or neglect as defined by Washington law. They said without that, they do not have the authority to investigate. In the meantime, the 2 suspects are in jail now on 8 criminal charges, including homicide, child assault, and unlawful imprisonment. They are scheduled to go to trial in April.